Hi everybody, Levi Clay here, owner of guidedpracticeroutines.com, where we practice together to progress faster. Now in my last lesson, we were looking at chord progressions and starting to look at some of the basic passing chords and substitutions that we can make in order to make chord progression sound a little bit more interesting, but it allowed us to delve a little bit deeper into chord function. Now, before I delve deeper into this lesson, I'm going to encourage you to go and check out the free PDF from my Science of Chord Progressions course. This PDF is the Chord Progression Encyclopedia, where I have transcribed 350 songs in terms of their functional chord progressions to help you be able to see similarities between songs. Wonderful resource for ear training and, of course, fretboard practice. I'm going to be making a bunch more videos like this over the coming weeks and months, so you'll be able to use that to help elevate your practice, give yourself some additional challenges. And the songs that I'm going to talk about today are also in that progression encyclopedia. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, like I say, last time I talked about this idea, I was comparing things to films and the idea of chords working within the context of the story that is being told. Today I want to talk about, well, two things. I want to talk about key centers versus tonal centers, and I want to talk about twists. So the first thing to discuss is the difference between a key center and a tonal center, or the key that a piece is in and the tonal center. Now, the age-old example of this is always Sweet Home Alabama. It gets talked about all the time. I certainly remember Adam Neely making a video on this. People argue about this song all of the time. Let's take a look at it. If we jump over and look at the guitar. So I'm sure you're familiar with Sweet Home Alabama. We would play a D, a C, a G. So there's a D, C, G chord progression. And people argue about the key that this is in. Now, here's where I get a little bit controversial. There are two answers to this. It depends whether you're talking about the key or the tonal center. So a key, we have to think of a key in the same way that you think of a key that unlocks doors. A key is something that gives us the information to unlock information within the area that we're looking at. So in this case, when you know the key that something is in, when you're able to unlock that information, what you really have is a collection of pitches. So you can look at these three chords and you can say these three chords aren't in the key of D. These three chords are all from the key of G. Now, when you know enough about music theory, you'll know that that means there's one sharp in the key, it's an F sharp. All of that is correct, but I would never argue that this song is in the key of G. And the reason for that is very simple. When I play these chords, D sounds like home to me. I can't, in good conscience, call this D chord the 5 chord in the key of G, because then I would have a chord progression that reads 5, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1. And that doesn't work for me because the D feels like home. So in my mind, because the D is home, it's our tonal center. That's where the 1 is. That's where the tonic is. We would name these chords in relation to D. So when you ask me what key is Sweet Home Alabama in, I'm thinking D, and I'm thinking the 1 chord. C would be the flat 7, and then G would be the 4 chord. Now this is useful for multiple reasons. It's useful because it helps us to hear chord function. Chord function is the most important thing. When you hear one chord on its own, you have nothing. When you hear one chord followed by another chord, you hear that second chord in relation to that first chord. Its emotional impact is directly reflected by what came before it and, of course, what comes after it. The context is so important. It's that film idea. It's the story. You hear the chord within the context of the story. You hear the chord within the context of the characters, of what's happening. So because of that, I'm thinking of this as being D. But we can present another reason why we can't just look at something like this and say it's in the key of G. What if we take a song that has a D chord, a C chord, and a G chord, but we also throw an A chord in there? Has the key changed? There's 4 major chords here. D, C, G, and A, going back to D. There's 4 major chords here. There are no keys that have 4 major chords. So what happened here? Did we change keys somewhere in the chord progression, or was there a chord in there that was non-diatonic or borrowed harmony? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the idea of putting a twist in a chord progression. So when I think of films again, and I think of a great twist in a film, it doesn't change the song, it just change the film. It just creates some impact. So if you think of, I don't know, like The Sixth Sense is like a really good example of a twist in a film. Or you could even argue the end of Planet of the Apes. A great twist at the end of that film that sort of recontextualizes the way you think about everything that you've seen before. And we can think about the same thing when we're playing music. When I play that chord progression, that A or A7 that I put at the end is a twist. You don't expect it to be there based on the context of what you've heard before. So there are lots of chords that you could put in a chord progression and deem them a twist. But for me, I want to look at the flat 7 today. We're going to be focusing on the flat 7 as a twist that we can put in our chord progressions. Now, what do I mean by the flat 7? And this is where I didn't get to talk too much about chord function in the last video. Anytime I think of a chord, I'm hearing it in relation to home. I'm hearing it in relation to the tonic. And every single chord in our diatonic series of chords has an emotional impact, emotional resonance. I talk about this all the time in my ear training course. Emotional resonance is like the key thing that we should focus on in our ear training. It's not an analytical thing where we use our mind to think about or hear a distance and count. No, it has to be emotional resonance. It has to be instinctual. You hear a thing and you know what that thing is based on how it makes you feel. So every chord has an emotional resonance. So if I'm in the key of G, I'm going to do most of these examples in the key of G. In the key of G, G is 1, C is 4, D is 5, back to G. So a 1-4-5 chord progression, very common. The 5 chord has dominant function, it's the 5 chord, and it wants to pull back to that 1 chord. The 4 chord can also pull back to the 1. It's more of a gospel, plagal cadence. It's something a little bit spicier there. I played the 4 chord C, but there's the 5, the bass note of the 5 in the bass, so you get the best of both worlds. You get the 4 chord going to the 1 and the 5 bass motion going to the 1. The point is, every single chord has some sort of feeling, some sort of impact. Now, the flat 7 is going to be 2 frets below our root note. So in the key of G, the flat 7 will be F major. Now, when you hear that, you could say, oh, well, these 2 chords come from the key of C. They do, yeah, sure, but we're not. We're in the key of G. G is home. When you hear that F, it's a twist, it's a surprise. And to me, that's a big part of what that flat 7 does. It's non-diatonic harmony, but in the most closely related to the music that we listen to. This flat 7 chord sound is something that you hear all the time. And when you hear it, to me, it sounds like blues rock. It gives that music the gritty, darker sound, and not dark in a metal way, but I mean dark in a cool, bluesy way. So for me, learning about this flat 7 chord is about songs. So again, I'm going to reference that chord encyclopedia that you can download, the progression encyclopedia, free in the description and in the top comment. I have an entire section in there where I list out songs that use that flat 7 chord. And it's important that you learn the songs and focus on the way that flat 7 chord makes you feel when you hear it. There are so many good examples of this. I had 2 planned, but I'm actually just going to mention the outro of Layla is like a really great example of a flat 7 chord in context, because you hear that. I'm sure you can. Bum. Ba da 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 dum. Ba da 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 dum bum. Ba da 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 dum ba da dum. there's our flat 7 chord. We're in the key of C, and we have a B flat, or it's actually a B flat 9. Da 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 da. Flat 7 chord. And every time I hear that song and that recording, once that chord hits, it's like such a great punch in the gut. And you'll hear so many examples of this happening in music all the time. If you took Hey Jude is another song that has that same move in there, because Hey Jude, I think it's in the key of F. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart. Then we can start to make it better. So just 1, 4, 5s. But that song is so good because it's the bridge that's impactful, where you get that na 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 na. Hey Jude. What a great move to go from that F, na na na, drop down to E flat, that's the flat 7 chord, then you go 4 back to 1. That flat 7 chord in there, so impactful when it finally happens. So, the 2 examples that I'm going to give you today. Let's start out with, we'll do Freebird because I mentioned it in the last video. So, Freebird is in the key of G. It's not up for discussion. Even though there are 4 major chords in there, it's in the key of G. G is the tonic. It doesn't change key. That's the important thing to note. So, we have our G chord, the 1 chord. If I leave here... So what was this chord? This is our D with the F sharp in the bass. This is the 5 chord. D is the 5 chord in the key of G, but we have the 3rd of that chord in the bass. So I would write this as 5B. B, and this was a question I got in the comments of the last video, B indicates a first inversion chord. C would indicate a second inversion chord, and occasionally you might see a D, that's a 3rd inversion chord, 7th in the bass. So 5B is the 5 chord with the 3rd of that chord in the bass. So, if I leave here tomorrow, down to our 6th chord, then we go flat 7. Now to my ears that sounds like a turnaround. It's an uplifting motion to go from the 6, moving up to that flat 7 chord. Would you still remember me? So 4 chord C, 5 chord D. So when I hear this song, play the 1, then the 5, then the 6 chord. 6 is minor and it's sad. Go up lifting flat 7 to the 4, then up to 5. If I leave here tomorrow. Just playing triad voicings, right? Would you still remember me? I must be traveling on now. There's so many places I've got to see. If I stay, you get the idea. So I'm just playing triads there, and I'm really big on being able to play triad harmony all over the guitar. Not to upsell you, but we do have, of course, the full triad mastery course on guidedpracticeroutines.com. So check that out if you want to check out the free trial. So you can hear the harmony there. And for me, the focus is the ear. Can I hear bass notes, right? I can even put passing chords in there without really thinking about it like I did there. I was on the 5 chord at the end, and now I'm going back to the 1 chord. So why not put that 5 chord in first inversion before it? Sounds kind of nice. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? I must be traveling on now, 'cause there's so many places I've got to see. Let's do the spicy there, the B7 that we did last week. If I stay here with you, girl, things just couldn't be the same. For I'm as free as a bird now. and this bird you cannot change. We won't play more than that. But at its core, yeah, I'm just playing through those chords. So we're focusing on the way that flat 7 sounds. And like I say, Freebird's such a wonderful example of that flat 7 being used in the context of a song. We really want to focus on the way that makes us feel. Now, again, in that free resource, there's loads of examples. Water by Brad Paisley, another really good one. Sorry. Then we get that. Have a 6 going up to the flat 7 for 1. Very common move. But the example that I want to use is, we're going to use Natural Woman by Aretha Franklin. Because, of course, I play a lot of soul music. Because I play in a soul band. And Natural Woman is a really, really wonderful song. Originally, it's in the key of C. But that's really high for me. I'd have to sing down the octave. I'd be looking out on the morning rain. I used to feel so uninspired. And when I feel I have to face another day. I'm sure we know this song. I'm going to play it in the key of G, though, to stay in line with what we were doing. So, same principle. I'm hearing a descending bass line here. I hear... looking out on the morning rain. Now, anytime I'm in a key and I hear a tonic, looking out on the morning, and I hear that bass note drop down a semitone, I know that's almost certainly going to be my 5-chord inverse inversion. There are going to be exceptions to that. I think like Nothing from Nothing by Billy Preston is a good example of that. But by and large, when it is that 7, the emotional resonance kicks in. I hear it and go, well, it's probably that 5-chord inverse inversion. Because on the odd occasion where it isn't, you'll immediately know it because the chord sounds so dramatically different from what you're used to being there. Anyway, looking out on the morning rain. Then we go to our flat 7 chord. I used to feel so uninspired. And then to our 4 chord. So our chord progression in Natural Woman is 1, 5B, flat 7, 4. So you can hear as I'm playing through those chords there, hopefully you can hear the harmony happening. And that's because in my mind, I'm trying to hear all of those chord movements. I'm trying to hear our 1 chord. Da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. And the fun thing for me is in the planning of this lesson, I knew that I was going to play Natural Woman not in the original key. When I play this live, I don't play it on the guitar. Today might have been the first time I played it on the guitar. I usually play this song on the piano, and we play this in C, in the original key. When Melissa's singing it, she's in C. But I just know that I'm going to be able to play this in any key on the guitar because I understand, I can hear the chord function, and I understand the relationships between chords on my instrument. So doing it in the key of G isn't going to be that much of a problem because as long as I can see my 1 and then play my 5-chord inverse inversion, I can play my flat 7, I can play my 4 chord. But if just, for shits and giggles, I had to play it in the key of E flat. Well, if I take an E flat, I can play... because I'm not stressing about it. I can see if this is my 1, where is my 5 chord inverse inversion? I know I'm dropping down a semitone. This is a third of my chord, so the chord is going to be a B flat. I can see my B flat triad with a third in the bass. Then I have my flat 7 chord. I can play like this or like this. If E flat is my 1, A flat is going to be my 4, and I'm not thinking in terms of pitch names there. I'm thinking in terms of relationships between bass notes. So I don't actually think A flat. I think to myself, if this is 1, this is 4. The names of these notes aren't important to me. But if I played that in a different place, I might play. Let's go. So hopefully what you can see there is my ability to apply chords and harmony to the instrument is real strong. And you'll see that there's no better example of that than if I had to do Freebird, right? I wouldn't stress about it. Thinking of my Roman numerals. 1, 5 inverse inversion, 6, flat 7, 4, 5. Words to that effect. So I want to say, does that make sense? But I appreciate that in a video context like this, where I'm throwing lots of information at you, probably not if that is new to you. But go back and watch this video as many times as you need to. Download the free resource so you can look at some of these chord progressions and you can start working on them. I'm also going to be filming a follow-up video for everybody that downloads that free PDF resource now, to help you understand how you go about using it in your actual practice, how you get into a place where you can find these chords more instinctively on the fretboard. But of course, you'll need to have downloaded the free resource for me to email that to you. So any questions, sound off below. If you do want to get the resource, again, link is in the description. Check out all of those links. Check us out at guidedpracticeroutines.com, where we practice together to progress faster. I've been Levi Clay. You've been awesome. Get to work.